Hello, everybody, and welcome back to All Was Right. I'm Chris Thomas, and this is Larissa. We know we have a huge human trafficking problem in the United States, don't we?
Mm-hmm.
And it's oftentimes people on the progressive left that want to divert the attention away from that. I think that's very, very clear.
Yep.
And one of the tactics that's being used most recently, and I take this rather personally because it affects me and my early life, is adoption. And it's become a trend on TikTok for people that look like woke liberal people. I'm sure they are. You can tell a wokey by looking at one, right? You don't. It's easy to
Yep.
tell. And they're
Yep.
trying to exactly, and they're trying to draw some kind of weird, sick comparison between normal adoption and human trafficking. And I'm just going to play a couple of these examples, and this is what really grinds my gears.
Okay, but that's not the
But
same.
that's not the same. Okay. Okay,
It's
can
not
you
the
can you
same.
can you
Okay, so I know that was short. We're going to do one more. And there are a lot of these, by the way. It's always with these same little types of backgrounds.
I could have said, "Well, songs about Ricky. Never mind, he's trash."
And I did. I fucking said it, and I'll say it again.
First of all, I would guarantee neither of these people were adopted. And if they were probably adopted by bad parents, and that happens, and that's a shame. But
Unfortunately.
I'm going to go a step further, and we're going to look at an article, or it's really an op-ed. It's, sorry, not an op-ed. It's a letter to the editor from June 6th, 2022, to HJ News. And I'm going to put this up on the screen too, because I thought, okay, maybe this is a TikTok trend. Maybe it's not serious, but then I saw this. So this is a letter to the editor. The title is Adoption is Not a
What?
Gift, It's Human Trafficking. So I'm not going to read the whole thing, but essentially they're talking about how this person was struck by the fact that the word gift is mentioned 12 times in a book. Adoption is a life-changing gift-giving option. The definition of a gift is
I see it like 4 times in the first
right. So
three.
this person, this is first of all, this is a bizarre reasoning here. They're saying a definition of a gift is a
Yeah.
thing given willingly to someone without payment, a present. A gift is a thing, an object, a commodity. Human beings can be no more blah, 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 blah. First of all, talk about taking things literally, right? I mean, does this person have no brain cells? Anyway, this whole thing is a very offensive piece about how adoption is dehumanizing to a child and it should be basically not validated as anything legal or valid, and it's human trafficking. Now, I'm adopted. I'm very lucky that I am. I know not everybody has a great family who's been adopted, but if you look up what human trafficking is, and here's where we have trusty Google, right? But let's look at
Yep.
what the Department of Homeland Security considers human trafficking. And it's a very specific definition that, I guess, shockingly, doesn't match what these TikTok people are saying.
What do you know?
What is human trafficking? Human trafficking involves the use of force, fraud, or coercion to obtain some kind of labor or commercial sex act. Every year, millions of men, women, and children are trafficked worldwide. Obviously, it's a big problem, including right here in the U.S. Traffickers might use the following methods to lure victims into trafficking situations: violence, manipulation, false promises of well-paying jobs, romantic relationships. And the big point of trafficking is the person who's receiving the human is doing so for a purpose that's either commercial, meaning financial, or sexual, or for labor. A parent wanting to take in a young child to try in good faith to give it a better home, that's not human trafficking. That's not exploitation.
No. Nah, not even the slightest.
So what do you make of it?
And I mean, my
Yeah,
cousin, I
right.
mean, just like you were adopted, I have a cousin who's adopted, and they are pretty well off, and she grew up in a beautiful home, vacations. Her parents, I mean, not gonna lie, her parents were assholes, more so her dad than her mom. But still at the end of the day, she did have a loving home, and I don't think she would agree that she was trafficked in the slightest.
So what do you make of people who are saying that's true? Like, to me, it almost strikes me as like a diversion tactic because it's the far left that doesn't want to acknowledge real human trafficking, yet they're making a lot of noise about this.
I mean, there is good and bad in every community. So why are you not exposing real trafficking, but only pointing it at adoption? Which I'm sure if you look at the actual statistics of, children who do get abused in any shape or form under an adoptive parent, I'm sure the statistic percentage is relatively low. Like, I'm sure it's not at like a 70%, right?
Well, I'm sure it's
So
no higher. This would be.
what's with the obsession over the
I mean,
adoption?
here's the thing. Like, I'm sure there are people who abuse their kids who adopt them, but I'm sure it's no higher than the rate of biological parents because when you become a biological parent,
Right.
when you have kids, you don't have to go through a battery of financial and background checks to make sure you're fit to have the kid. Anybody can get pregnant with their partner and have a child and not have to go through the scrutiny. Most adoption agencies, and my parents will tell you this, they went through this. They went through a rigorous screening. It was very, very rigorous. Now I know not all agencies have the same standards, but all agencies have some standard. And I'll say this without hesitation, some standard is better than no standard. So you're
Yep.
trying to give the child the best chance to live in a good home by at least trying to weed out as many bad fit families as possible. And I think that's a good thing.
Right.
So, why tarnish that and give it a bad name when there's actual human trafficking? To me, it's almost like hey, we don't want you to look over here because all of the politicians on our side are going to be on the Epstein client list. So we don't want to draw attention over here.
See, my thing is like, why, like, no matter which political party or celebrity or athlete, musician, it does not matter. If those people are trafficking children or did go to Epstein Island, or, if they're doing any of their, rituals by drinking children's blood, I don't fucking know. But they are not good people, period. And that includes biological parents, that includes adoptive parents, that includes any individual on this planet Earth. I don't know why we have to point fingers as to make it seem like, this category is worse than this category. Point blank, period. Trafficking is bad. So let's just all agree on that. Period.
Absolutely. But I think one of the damaging effects of this is going to be if you're going to equate adoption with human trafficking, then then you are actually saying that real human trafficking isn't that bad because adoption isn't bad, right? So you're
Right.
actually saying this horrible, violent and sexual practice going on is the same as adoption. Now you could be against adoption, don't adopt. If you're against adoption, don't adopt. But to say that
You're not forced
exactly,
to.
give the two the same term, and I think I try not to do this. Like, I don't call trans people groomers. I call groomers groomers. I've never alleged that like, all trans people
Right.
are groomers or that all leftists are bad. I think a lot of them act badly. But I would never, I don't paint the whole community. I make it clear that there are people, I do think, we've talked about in other videos, that the trans community, that groomers hide in the trans community because they know they're going to be free from social ridicule.
Absolutely.
But that's not saying if you're trans, you're a groomer. That's not true. And I would argue with anybody that says that.
Well, the problem is they take a couple of words from the one sentence and twist it into something negative.
Exactly.
So they'll only partially hear what you're saying.
Exactly.
That's the problem.
Exactly. But when you put so if you're going to call now, you could have an issue with adoption, you could not like adoption, but at the end of the day, if you're going to call it the same term as a horrible, horrible crime, then first of all, it's extremely offensive to people who that may have adopted. Like my mom couldn't get pregnant. She had a medical problem which prevented her from getting pregnant. And you're going to say that she engaged in a horrible felony by adopting me? I mean, that's just such nonsense. And it's just untrue.
Yeah.
It's untrue. And I think, why? And also, there are a lot of, and this is actually true, a lot of adopted children have higher rates of mental illness. And it's not because of the parents that are adopting them. It's because when you get taken away either from a foster mother or your birth mother, even if you're only a few months old, it leaves an imprint on your brain of being abandoned, even if nothing bad has happened to you.
Oh, of
And
course.
so a lot of these kids, like I struggled with mental health issues when I was a teenager and early adulthood. I think I've talked to you about that offline too. And it's just true. And it's not because it's not through any fault of the adopted parents. It's just the nature of what's happened. Now, I would still argue that a lot of these kids are much better off with a manageable mental health problem in a loving family than they would be in an orphanage or living in an impoverished third world country. They're probably still, I wouldn't even say they are better off. Now, the problem is these kids already oftentimes struggle with feelings of abandonment and feelings of not knowing their birth family. Why would you add the stigma to them that maybe they have to wonder whether they were human trafficked?
It doesn't even make
At a
sense.
minimum, it turns people against their families, even if their family is very loving. Like if we feed
Right.
this narrative of maybe you were human trafficked to somebody, even if they have a great relationship in their family, but you can really get in someone's head and make them think that their parents committed a horrible crime to obtain them. That can break
Right.
up families that are otherwise healthy because it turns kids against their parents. And
I mean, who's to say that, a kid's not going to take it where, like the government website, it was saying about manual labor, right? It's not always for sexual. So who's to say you're not going to have, a kid that's, saying that, oh, their chores that they're
Exactly.
doing at home is considered manual
Exactly.
labor. So now they're like, oh, I hate you. You make me take out the garbage and vacuum the floors, twice or three times a week. I'm a servant to you guys. Like, what?
Yeah, and I think
Things will get taken and twisted
and
like
as
that.
adults, we're smart enough that we can say, of course, that's not true. But if you're a 5-year-old
Right.
if you're a 5-year-old who's already struggling with the emotional ramifications from adoption, because there is an age where I think I have a wonderful family, but there were a few years where, not because of anything my family did, just my emotions about being adopted made me wonder whether they loved me as much as they would have if I was biological. And of course, it's not true. But as a little kid, I wondered that. And if somebody had planted, if I was on TikTok at that age, and I had the idea implanted,
Oh my
right?
God.
Imagine if I had the idea implanted in my head that somehow my parents had obtained me through something that was a horrible crime like human trafficking, and that they were using me. I would have spiraled out of control if I was thinking that. So,
And like God only knows what's going to happen to kids who have seen those TikToks and they are adopted.
yeah, absolutely.
What is like, you are messing up these kids so bad just because I don't even know what your goal is by saying that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what type of outcome
Yeah,
you're
that's a good question. What is
expecting.
the outcome? I mean, you're not going to make adoption illegal. These kids are already adopted legally. Like, what outcome are you hoping for? Just to mess them up? The running theme of this modern crazy left we have is they like fucking with children. They want. I mean, everything comes. It's about putting false narratives in the head of children. If you think about it, there's a common theme in a lot of this. Make children who are adopted think they are human trafficked. Make children think they can change their gender. Make children
Make children think that they could one day be a sea creature.
right. make children think that if an adult is attracted to them, that it's a valid sexual orientation, minor attraction. I mean, everything is about
Mm.
giving a warped narrative to children.
Well, they're doing it because they realistically they hate kids.
Yeah, they hate kids because they think, well, yeah, everything. It's funny. They want the adult population to stop having kids, right? Because of overpopulation and global warming hysteria and all this stuff, and capitalism and everything is evil. But then the kids that are actually already here, they want to corrupt them. And with that, guys, I know that was a very depressing conversation. That is the end of our show for today. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe, and we hope you have a good night, guys.
Bye, guys.